Okay, so welcome everybody. Welcome to this Smart Cities breakout group. Thank you for registering your interest in this theme. My name is Sarah Davern and I'm based in the Southern Regional Assembly in Waterford in Ireland. And I'm the national contact point for the Northwest Europe programme in Ireland. So on screen, you'll see just a couple of technical housekeeping points. Firstly, we ask you to please keep your microphone muted and your camera off for now. You'll be able to unmute yourself and turn your camera on during the breakout rooms. So that starts at about 11:30 European time, 10:30 Irish time. In terms of renaming yourself, we ask you just to do that, please. Instructions are on the screen. Click the participant button at the bottom of your screen and you'll see the list of participants on the right-hand side, and your name will be at the top of the list in Zoom. You can hover on your name and you can rename from there. So during the presentations, you will be permitted to ask questions using the chat in Zoom. So no longer the Slido, now we're using the Zoom chat. Be aware that by default, all the messages you send will go to everyone in the meeting. So if you have technical issues during the session, we ask you please don't alert everyone, but use the private message to technical support 1 or technical support 2. To send a private message, you just click the arrow next to everyone and choose the person you want help from. The session today will last 45 minutes, and after that we'll go into the more informal breakout groups. In the next 45 minutes, we will have 4 presentations followed by time for questions and answers. So first we will review very briefly some of the key results of the programme from the last 7 years. And then we'll have 2 project presentations, first from the Smart Circular Bridges project, who'll share their experiences and results, followed by the Smart Spaces project. Our last presentation will give us an overview of the future Northwest Europe programme design. And finally, at the very end, there'll be 10 to 15 minutes for questions that you can write in the Zoom chat. So now I'd like to invite Peter Campobasso to share his presentation. Peter is the project officer in Lille for the Joint Secretariat of the Northwest Europe programme in France. And today he'll share with us some key figures and results for the Northwest Europe programme during the 2014-2020 period. So over to you, Peter, 5 minutes.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. As Sarah was mentioning, my name is Peter Campobasso, and I am a project officer at the Interreg Northwest Europe Joint Secretariat. Today, I'm going to be speaking a little bit about, give everyone some context for the what has happened over the last programming period within the smart city space. So as you can see, within the 2014 to 2020 program period, about 51.12 million euros in ERDF has been committed to smart city projects. This has been spread amongst about 106 partners, all coming from various sectors, including research institutions, public authorities, municipalities, and the private sector, especially with a heavy concentration on small and medium-sized enterprises. We can pretty much categorize the different types of smart city projects into 4 different categories, ranging from smart administration, smart transportation, to smart resource management, such as with water and materials, and smart energy. As you can see, we've had about 9 projects that have fit into the smart city space. And there has been an overwhelming majority of projects that have been approved by member states that have gone into the smart energy category, really focusing on the energy management aspect of smart cities. In addressing the smart city subject, working to make cities smarter and more efficient and more responsive, we can see that there is a strong framework through cooperation provided by the Northwest Europe program. We have the 3 different priorities, including innovation, low carbon, and resource efficiency, which all give projects the space to act, whether it's through enhancing business performance for new technologies and products and processes, or working to facilitate low carbon energy, or again, optimizing the use of natural resources. Projects are also contributing to other international frameworks as well at the European and international levels. So for example, there are projects that are going through the EU Renewable Energies Directive, and other projects are looking into the 2030 energy strategy roadmap as well. Projects are also contributing to the UN Sustainable Development Goals, including for affordable and clean energy and sustainable cities and communities. Thanks to this cooperation framework, there are new products, new processes, and a foundation for more efficient public services, greenhouse gas savings, and smarter innovation. So in terms of products that have been developed, we have seen new smart platforms, smart sensors, smart energy storage systems, new processes, including governance models to unlock the potential of smart cities, and even educational approaches for energy reduction. The results, again, because there has been such a focus on this energy management systems, there have been thousands of tons of reduced greenhouse gas emissions, new renewable energy capacity, cooperation with research institutions to bring their research mainstream, and once again, contributions to policy frameworks at the EU and international levels. Just to give a couple of examples before we get into the projects, we have seen new energy management systems from working towards the mismatch in consumption and production of electric energy for electric vehicles. We've seen new energy innovation. This is from the project Clean and Mobile Energy. We've seen another project, Be Good, which has worked on new innovation clusters and networks to encourage new technologies, products, and public services to using smart open data. We've seen with the D2Grids project, new district heating and cooling systems with self-regulating energy management systems. And thanks to eHubs, we have seen new hubs on city streets bringing together electric bikes, electric cargo bikes, electric scooters to offer a breadth of electric mobility solutions. So those are just a couple of examples. I'm now going to hand the floor over to Sarah, who will introduce the first projects that will give a more in-depth presentation on how they've been working on the smart city space. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Just a quick reminder to everybody listening that you can add your questions to the chat and we'll attempt to address them later. So now we're going to hear from a very exciting project led by Eindhoven University of Technology in the Netherlands. Rijk Blok will share his presentation. So over to you, Rijk. You have 10 minutes.
Thank you, Sarah. I will share my screen. Yes, I am from the University of Eindhoven, and at Eindhoven we look at building structures. It's my background. I will tell a little bit about materials in the presentation, and then later on really the smart part of this project. It's a little bit funny to talk in the past tense about this project because we only started last year, but still we are achieving already some quite good results. Well, the reason behind it is that we built with students in 2016 a biocomposite bridge. That means natural fibers, hemp and flax, and we wanted to investigate whether it's possible to use this in bridges, in load-bearing structures. Well, at TUE, we, and also others, of course, are looking at circularity, and normally we look at two different circles. One is the let's say, classic fossil materials, but in this case, we look at the renewables, so natural fibers. And the reason why we do this, of course, is that the construction industry is a very big user of fossil materials. We have to do something to change that and to improve the behavior of this industry. Well, obviously, everybody can agree that there is something wrong, that we have a problem with our spaceship Earth in terms of, let's say, waste production, but also in terms of climate and global warming. We have to take some action. So that brings me to the objectives of our project. Of course, we want to optimize the natural material and use natural resources as much as possible. We want to minimize, of course, CO2, and that gives us also a goal to achieve. There are many bridges, well, also in cities, of course, so many cities are owners of bridges that represent a lot of fossil materials. But we aim in this project to build 3 demonstration bridges and then, of course, improve this and avoid a lot of raw fossil material use in the future. Well, what are we talking about? What is a biocomposite? Well, in our case, that means we need the fibers for the strength, so natural fibers, and we glue them together with a resin. The problem, of course, is we do not know exactly how this material will behave on the long run. The first project, so what have we achieved so far? The first project will be realized in Almere, and in Almere city in the Netherlands, there will be in 2022 a World Horticulture exhibition, so on flowers and trees and plants. And afterwards, it will be an urban area. And there we will realize the first smart circular bridge. We've done a design for that, and you see here a section. It's a little bit technical, but only the dark gray parts are actually this natural fibers with resin. So it's a very lightweight bridge. And here in red, you see that we already did some tests. So for example, we built this part, which you see on the right, upside down. So it's the side of the bridge. And we wanted to test the production. So is the infusion, is it going well? And on the left, you see a large mechanical model. We tested it already and see whether it was strong enough. But in there are a lot of sensors, and that is, of course, the smart part of it. And these sensors are optical sensors. So in a very thin, a hair thick glass line, there are etched some, you could call it kind of holograms. And if you send light through it, and the reflection is a little bit shifted, then this shift in spectrum is a very good measurement for the strain. So how much the material is loaded. Well, for this, we want to build a structural health monitoring system, and we used our bridge at TU Eindhoven as a test setup. There were already a lot of sensors in it, and we put some extra sensors in it to measure the temperature and to measure the strain. And these are fully embedded in the material, so we really pick up the material behavior. And we build a system, which you can see here on these pictures. So here you see the bridge. All the lines, the very thin glass lines, come together in this connection box. And then we connect it to an interrogator, so it is sent light through, so we can read out the results of these sensors. And then we connected it to the internet. So the Internet of Things, of course, in this case, our bridge. And then we have a system, a bridge management system is our goal, to read out those sensor data. And we can set thresholds. And at some point, for example, we get an email warning if there is an if the threshold is met. So we can have an alarm in case we have an overload or something else is happening. Of course, we can only do this with a very good partnership. So we have 5 universities. So KU Leuven is very good in material, Stuttgart in design, University of Brussels, very good in artificial intelligence, etc. And we have 5 companies, Fibercore Europe. They are already producing traditional composite bridges using glass fibers. And we have companies that are good in this sensing and monitoring. So from the Netherlands, Belgium, France, and Germany. Material manufacturers, and of course the 3 cities where we will build this demonstration projects. And so we will end in the December 2023. Of course, the smart part, of course, is that we want to achieve a bridge management system. So the structural health monitoring system, we call that in structures. And with that, of course, we can collect the in situ material behavior during the service life of the bridge. So there is a continuous monitoring of this bridge with thresholds or early warnings if we need to act or do something. Of course, this gives us the opportunity to relate the bridge behavior to our material tests. We do a lot of material tests, and it makes it possible to predict what is going to happen a little bit further on in the service life of the bridge. And I think this is quite novel that we do not just have a building application check at the start, at the design, but we have a continuous check on whether this bridge is safe enough. And I really see that as the future for all assets, for all bridges in the future. And also the good thing is that we have a much more precise estimate of the remaining service life. So this bridge is now, for example, 15 years old. Is it already at the end of service life, or is it easily going to make the 50 years? So we have the history of loading data, we have the history of temperature or freezing and thawing cycles, etc. And we can estimate this service life. And of course, that is very good for the maintenance and renewal planning. So the maintenance, the assets that bridge owners have, they want to predict, of course, what's going on, when do we need renewal, what is the quality of our current bridges. Another thing that I put in here, this is not the focus of the project, but it's of course possible to also use this data in crowd control. We have the historic loading data of the bridge traffic, for example. Is it heavily loaded? Are there a lot of people on the bridge, yes or no? But also in real time, we can see whether the loading is increasing, yes or no. Of course, the main goal for this is also to convince our stakeholders. So in our project, a very important part is actually to take on board the authorities for approval. So what is it that the requirements are of this bridge management system so that we can use it in a good way? And also for future bridge owners, the relation between bridge owners and bridge suppliers. What happens with the guarantees on the material and the bridges, etc. But of course, the main goal behind it is to use innovative and as much as possible, much more circular materials in infrastructure. Well, that brings me to the end of our presentation, of my presentation, sorry. So this gives still a little bit an overview of what we want to achieve. On the one hand, we want to close the circle of material use with as much as possible natural materials. And at the other side, we want to make it smart. So we have a continuous monitoring of the bridge and its behavior, and that we get an early warning in case of maintenance is needed or in case we and need to do some other actions, and to make a much more predictive service life estimation at each point. Thank you. That ends my presentation.
Thank you, Rijk, for your presentation and sharing so much with us despite the time limits. You did very well. Thank you. So now I'm pleased to pass the floor to Christophe Verhoost, who is project manager of the Smart Spaces project from the city of Ostend in Belgium. Smart Spaces project has had some very interesting results since it started, and we're keen to hear more about it. I do encourage everyone to keep putting your questions in the chat. We are reading them.
Thank you a lot, Sarah. And thank you also, Rijk Blok, for the very interesting Smart City project I didn't knew of. It was very inspiring. And that's what I hope also, that by presenting our project, we might inspire you all to also go ahead if you have a project IG. So I'm Christophe Verhoost, from the city of Ostend. I work as a grant officer, and I'm responsible. I'm the project leader of the Smart Space project. To learn more about the project, of course, we have our website, but we thought it would be more interesting to take you on in a short introductory movie that explains the aim of the project in a rather clear way. So it's not technical, it's really about feeling what it's all about. So I hope everything works technically well, and there we go for 2 minutes. Thank you.
When you're doing some shopping, walking your dog, or going for a jog, street lamps light your way, keeping you safe and comfortable. But all of this light requires a lot of energy, costing the city a lot of money and producing harmful CO2. That's why many cities have switched to more energy-efficient LED light bulbs. A smart move. And some are going one step further with the Smart Space project. In cooperation with 2 enterprises, 3 universities, the Flemish grid operator Fluvius, and the Lucy Association. These 4 European cities will install a pilot for smart lighting systems, one that helps them to reduce CO2 emissions and energy costs, while still keeping their citizens safe and comfortable. Because smart lighting is not about turning off the light, It's about providing the right amount of light, in the right place, at the right time. Instead of one size fits all, a smart lighting system uses technology to measure the need for light per area. Maybe there's a lot of light from surrounding buildings. Maybe a cloudy sky is making everything darker. Or maybe Valentine's Day demands some mood lighting. A smart lighting system knows that and adjusts the street lamps in that area accordingly. It's a small change, but a big difference for the city and its people, and for our planet. That's why 12 European partners in the Smart Space project are working together, creating a roadmap and a toolbox that can help other cities to implement a smart lighting system as well. Want to know more? Check our website.
So that was a little insight in the project. Already a lot has been explained, so maybe I'll repeat myself a little bit, but I'll try to avoid it. So we're into priority 2, and once the project has been written, people who've done it, I wasn't there yet at the time, were convinced that public lighting can contribute it, but you have to optimize it. And there's already a lot of going on. You've seen it also in the video. Ledification is going on for the moment, and this could already help us to gain 50% of the energy consumption. It's not 100% related to the carbon reduction, but within the project, we try to prove that adding smartness to us can even bring us further on in the carbon reduction. But what do we see for the moment is that the introduction of smart public lighting is lacking behind. There are some projects in rather major cities or rather small sized projects, but we don't have the large scale rollout as for now. So that's what we want to do. We want to facilitate the large scale rollout, and mainly for small and mid-sized municipalities, as they are struggling the most with it. And we have, of course, our pilot cities, but what is very important, this is one, we want to design the public lighting considering the need and the wishes of the people who are using the public space. That's a very important point, and has had some issues while realizing what we're wanting to do. And of course, we have the one goal of energy consumption. We want to get down or get lower, but we also want to invest in the livability of the public spaces. So it's a balanced story. It's not a one-way going story. So by doing this, we want to contribute to the program. Of course, first of all, we want to create a low carbon technology, and that's that smart light system. We want enterprises to work together with research institutes. So we have 2 private companies, and we want to realize, we hope to realize, we estimated to realize 452 tons carbon reduction a year. So where are we now? Well, of course, we've started by getting to know the wishes and the need of the people and other stakeholders that are using the public space. So you have already now a methodology to captivate that. So that's already there. And very important, we have a framework on smart public lighting. So what you think about smart public lighting, what I think, what cities think, what companies think is not the same. So we really made a kind of common language to discuss on smart public lighting. We already have a smart space knowledge center, and there are already 49 users in it. And it's about sharing knowledge, but also creating a network on the topic of smart public lighting. We have, of course, our 4 pilot cities, and the installation of the smart public lighting is ongoing for the moment. And the roadmap is more or less ready, and the toolbox that comes along with it. And we will have workshops at the second part of this year, and all cities are invited to join it to be able to work with this tool. Now, about the carbon reduction, we still have to start the monitoring phase. So I'm curious myself if we will be able to prove that adding smartness is already beneficial on the carbon reduction. Now, this is our system. I should have introduced more pictures, but so it's quite simple. In fact, you have your luminaires, you have your sensors on different things. It could be a light sensor, sound sensors, passenger by sensors, able to detect different objects in the public space, vehicles, pedestrians, cyclists, and of course all this information go into the data, which is connected to a platform which is able to steer your public lighting. So there's a two-way going communication, and of course the universities have access to it. And all of this is done by communication units, and in the project we've learned you need different kind of communication units to realize what you want to do. Now, what were the challenges building that smart light system? Well, first of all, we learned if you think before you start, and you start with an integral design at the beginning of the process where you have your hardware, your light design and functionalities together at the start of the project. And that was also an issue. So you have your wishes from the users of the public space, and you have to translate that to a technical system able to do it. And that wasn't so very easy. So now we know that in between you need someone to make a click, and to our opinion, that could be a light designer. What we've learned also that it's quite challenging to build a smart light system. You see it everywhere in presentations, and it seems just like that to do it. Well, if the components are from different enterprises, it's quite difficult to make them communicate. So what we see regularly now is that we have a kind of vendor lock-in system where all the components are from the same companies. Well, so that learned us that we need standards on the hardware to get the components click into each other. It's really all about that, but also on the level of communication between the different applications, so-called APIs. And of course, all about the data. There has to be some agreement on how you will handle the data collection, processing, storing, and others, and more specific on some type of sensors could be related to some privacy issues. And there we have an in-depth analysis of the risk, and that led to a processing agreement between the cities and the enterprises. Now, for the long run, within 5 years, 50 municipalities have to invest in a smart public lighting system, and therefore we have made up some reports about the long-term rollout. And for our partnership, one challenge is when the project starts, the smart public light system will still be there and will still have to function. So now we're working on a post-project service level agreement that should make it possible to do so. The partnership, well, you've seen the partnership, and I think the partnership was the right mix between the end users, the municipalities, and of course the citizens, about the enterprises building it and the universities to learn lessons from it, and to have something which is a good mix between the practice and research. So to my opinion, what we've created is broadly applicable outside the project and for the long run. And working together on the Northwest Europe level also learned that in different countries, we are looking in a different way to public lighting. So that has a lot of complication on legislation and other things. And what we've learned also, if you start a project, think on these issues. We are struggling now a bit, but that's why we have a project, of course, is on issues as who's the owner of the asset after the project, who is the owner of the data, all of this. So now we are working with the service level agreement, but maybe you could have some of the issues already arranged in your partnership agreement. Well, I'm at the end of my presentation, and I would like to stop with this. If you have a project on smart cities, don't forget the human touch. It's very important to meet in real time, to have it within your partnership. Of course, our project is for the people of the cities. It's not about the technology. The technology is for the people, for the well-being of the people, and to realize a certain carbon reduction. But this kind of pictures, I'm looking forward to do it with my own partnership, as I haven't met the all the people yet in lifetime. So I know what it's all about. So thanks for your attention. I hope this might inspire you to also go ahead with your project, and I stay with you for the Q&A part. So don't hesitate to put down your questions in the chat. Thanks a lot. Thanks you a lot. Back to Sarah.
Thanks to you, Christoph. Yeah, as Christoph said, we'll have time for questions at the end. So do please keep putting your comments. And I notice people putting synergy ideas into the chat. So that's great. And hopefully we'll have a bit of time to go through your questions at the end. For now, our next session is going to share with you what we know so far about how smart cities will be tackled as a theme in the future Northwest Europe program for 2021-2027. So this will be led by my colleague, Matthias Verhege. Excuse my pronunciation, Matthias. He is the national contact point for the Flanders region of Belgium, and he has a few slides to share. So please go ahead, Matthias, and share your screen when you're ready.
There we go. Thank you, Sarah, and thanks for the introduction. So I have the honor to take you back to the future for a few moments, and a bright and smart future that should be for the cities and villages and regions of Northwest Europe. I'll try to answer 4 questions with you. First of all, where does a smart city project could fit the program? Who would be the target groups we can serve, and who can we work with in a project? What was the input from the stakeholder consultation from you all? And what types of actions are being considered when we speak of activities in a project? First of all, a smart city, what could it be? Well, it could be anything. This image says it all. It could be about intelligent shopping, it could be about smart buildings, smart parking, water quality, and so on. A lot of topics are covered in different priorities of the next programming period. So please don't hesitate or don't restrain yourself in coming with an idea that could be smart city. As long as there is a component in it that is about harnessing the data, using the Internet of Things, making services more efficient by making them smart, then there is a way for a smart city project, I'm sure. How could we concretely fit it into the specific objectives that are being drafted currently by the program? Well, first I have to take a disclaimer. Priority 4, innovation, is still heavily under construction. Debates are still going on between member states. So what I'm going to say now is still a bit under debate. Nevertheless, we already have quite a few things we can say. For example, under the priority innovation, which will be different than the priority innovation we know already in the current programming periods, everything, or a big part at least, will be about reducing territorial innovation gaps by making villages or cities smarter through uptake of new solutions then being new smart infrastructure, new smart services. So it's a broad concept. That is definitely something that can happen, but it is important that you start from a territorial logic. For example, if you're going to work in the context of a big city or a couple of big cities in one project, and you're going to work about traffic jams, yeah, there is a certain territorial logic in there that it is something for big cities. So make sure that you build this into your logic. But it could also be that you want to work about smart mobility in a totally different setting. So, for example, a deprived region with an elderly population where basic mobility services are in decline, and you want to do something about it with new smart mobility concepts. There's really a need for basic service there. It's a totally different territory. It's a totally different logic. But there is still a way, if you get your logic straight, to have it into a project. So everything starts from a clearly defined territorial innovation gap. So make sure that you have a coherent partnership to make the logic work. What will it also be about? About addressing citizens' needs. So citizens, users are very central to your project. We will definitely encourage co-creation, so getting them along and getting feedback when you are working on the innovation of certain services where they are currently lacking. So go for co-creation, go for quadruple helix partnerships, which I will explain later on. It could also be that you already have an intelligent smart city strategy on your shelf, or a smart region strategy, for example, and that you want to implement it. That could also be an angle that you can use in a smart city project. So, for example, building a right framework and tools for using or disclosing data in a given territory, that is definitely a thing that could work within Northwest Europe smart city or smart village project. And always make sure that there is a transnational angle and vision to your project. Even if we have this territorial logic central, it cannot be that you work on your island in your own region and that everybody works next to each other. There really needs to be some tools or a common concept or something that can be disseminated widely over other cities or other regions in Northwest Europe. So this angle is very important as well. Otherwise, you shouldn't apply for a transnational program and a transnational project. That's for priority 4. But as I said, there are still a lot of topics that could also have something to do with smart cities that can be tackled in other priorities. We have, for example, the priority 1, where you can work about water management, where you can work about air quality, for example. All these things definitely have a smart component in it. For air quality, there could be some work on sensoring. For water capacity measurements, it could be that you want to measure how quickly the rain infiltrates into the soil after a period of heavy rainfall, which we are going to encounter much more. Also, smart energy grids and local demand and local supply, and how do we match it, things like that. If your topic is mentioned otherwhere in the program in a specific priority, there could be a way to have the project there, but then we will have to see with you, and that's what contact points are for, where the focus is. Are you more going about to work about water capacity infrastructure and less about the smart part, but you're still going to do some data monitoring, for example? It could be that we divert you to priority 1 rather than priority 4. But just keep in mind for now that anything is possible and that there are a lot of angles and accesses to the program. What could be done concretely then under other priorities than the priority 4 innovation? For example, the demonstration and uptake of solutions to make services and infrastructure smarter. The example I gave on heavy rainfall, but also monitoring systems, observatories to make policy making smarter, to make it more data-driven, to have integrated systems that enable these evidence-based decisions, for example. Something we will need knowledge institutes for. That is also a topic that could be tackled within different priorities. If we then look at what your input was, we have had a stakeholder consultation in March, and you all gave us information and feedback on what should be included in the priority innovation or in the program as a whole, and also in what kind of actions we should include. For example, it was stated that people want to see innovative approaches for urban and rural areas. I can already assure you again, there will definitely be a way to go either for urban areas, either for rural areas, or for linkages between them. So there is no exclusion. Just because this is the Smart Cities workshop doesn't mean that we focus on cities alone. Also, to identify what makes territories resilient and attractive, I think if you go about looking into those things, that there is definitely a way of tackling this feedback as well. Then bring back services in remote areas. That's definitely something the priority will be aiming for. And if you want to do it under a smart region or smart city angle, just make sure that there is a digital and an Internet of Things or an Internet of Things part embedded into it. It could also be that you don't want to go into a smart way, but that's not the aim of this workshop. Then develop strategies to reduce the use of cars. I wanted to stress on this one because in the current programming period, we had a priority on mobility alone, which we won't have anymore in the future, but it doesn't mean that you can't work on smart mobility concepts or on cars. As I said, I gave the example earlier on, you could still do something about that in priority 4. In priority 5, it could be about accessibility for deprived population groups, for example, or more vulnerable people. There might be other ways to still work on mobility without having a clear mobility priority in the program. Then testing new solutions in the provision of public services was also something that people mentioned they want to work on, and that's of course spot on smart services.
Sorry, Matthias, just to note that we want to leave a little bit of time for the questions. So
yeah, of course, yeah. And then create standards for data sharing is also something that we can do. Who do we want to work with? That's the stakeholders and target groups. We want to work with the whole quadruple helix. So either you're from the public sector, from the knowledge institutes, or from business and business support organizations, or even more citizen-driven organizations, NGO, citizen groups. Everybody is welcome and everybody can work in a co-creation process. And then last but not least, the type of actions we could focus on in a project. So every priority will be structured into 3 types of actions. Either you work on strategies and action plans. You could also work more the hard outputs like pilot actions, new smart solutions, new public services, new smart infrastructure, for example. And then there is also a possibility to work on capacity building and awareness raising activities by having training schemes, for example, getting public authorities to know how they need to work with data and so on. So you have to at least contribute to one of these activities, but it is of course possible to do more than one type of activity in one project.
Thank you, Matthias. Very interesting and extremely relevant for everyone here to know about the future program, of course, at least what we know until now. So we have quite an active chat. We don't have too much time left, so I'll just go straight into it. Maybe I'll start with a simple question that I can answer myself. It was from Anna. Thank you, Anna. She asked about the project deliverables. I think it was for Christoph's project, the roadmap, the framework, if they're available, and if yes, where. And I can say, Anna, that all projects from the Northwest Europe program are, you can see the deliverables and the project design on the Northwest Europe Interreg website. So please feel free to check it out. You'll also be able to see there the recording of the previous webinar on the topic of greener themes, and the recording of this session will also appear there in the coming weeks. Next question, I think we'll go straight to Matthias. He touched on it a little bit about the differences and the need between opportunities for smart cities and smart regions and linkages between them. And also for you, Matthias, a question, I think, on the topic of capitalization. The person would like to know, does Interreg Northwest Europe award proposals tackling issues which are investigated already within running projects? Or do running projects exclude new initiatives on the same subject? So I think that's an important question I ask you, Matthias, to take.
Yeah. I think the key word here is indeed new initiatives. So it's definitely good if you can work on what you have done already before. But there will be a new angle necessary. There should be some kind of new service, new stakeholders you take on board, and you can do more of the same, of course. But it's never bad to refer to what you have done already and how you capitalize on that. It could even be an asset, and it doesn't need to be Northwest Europe. It could be any program, EU program or national program, or even another Interreg program. And then on the smart regions part, of course, regions are very welcome as well. It could be a rural region, it could be a cluster of villages, for example. If you want to make a strategy there, it will be welcome. So don't focus too much on cities alone. It is a catchy phrase, of course, but we see it broader than the city perspective. As long as it stays smart, then there is a way to do a smart city or smart villages project.
Thank you, Matthias. So now let's move on to a couple of more technical questions for our project speakers. So for Rijk, in relation to the smart bridges and materials, there was a question about whether the resin is of natural origin and also whether the sensors have applications in the bridges using traditional materials and whether they can be retrofitted.
Okay, so those are two questions, I think. So the first one is whether the resins are of, let's say, a bio-based resin. Well, to be honest, that is only partly true. So at the moment, we are using a polyester resin as opposed to where we did some experience before with epoxy resins, which are partly about 50% bio-based. So that means the other 50% are still based on, let's say, fossil oils. But in the project itself, also, we are trying to improve that level, the content of the bio-based. And also we are now focusing for the second bridge also to add a recycled content of re-PET, it's used, so a PET, a plastic material in the resin. So that is the first one. The other question was whether these sensors could also be used in different retrofitted situations. Well, the good thing, of course, about these optical fibers in our bridge is that they are fully embedded in the material. So they are in the production already there. So they're really protected also. But yes, they can be retrofitted to other structures. But then obviously you have to take into account that you have to protect it, and maybe the service life of these sensors is also a little bit limited. I hope I answered these two questions with this.
Thank you, Rijk. Yeah, very interesting. So now it's your turn, Christoph. We have a couple of questions for you
Yeah,
on smart spaces. So the first one was most interesting. Can smart lighting be hacked? What is the maturity level of the technology of smart space? So must the technology still be developed within the project, or is it a kind of pilot or demonstration? And then final question for you, Christoph, about seems like there are other projects on this kind of topic, and if you have noticed synergy effects, or if you would have advice for future applicants in relation to synergies. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you a lot, Sarah. Well, about the hacking, I don't hope you find it interesting. You would like to avoid it. Well, that's what I've talked about in that service level agreement. That's one of the elements, of course, that the companies we are working with, and they have to prove that the data storage and others are safe, are reaching a certain level of standards, which are common in the field, I think, on data collecting and also system working. But yes, it's hackable, as all everything on the Internet of Things is hackable. So this is important, I think. Now, about the components of our smart light system we've been using, everything exists. So there's nothing new. It's all about getting them integrated and work together. That's very important. Maybe I exaggerate a bit. We had to develop a custom-made telecontroller, because when you want to deploy, I think, your smart public lighting, you will have a lot of a set already there that has to be made smart. And to be able, it's the easiest thing is to get a new lamppost and all the newest technology. It's about the existing part of your public lighting, which is there. If once you install it, it's there for 15 years at least. So you have to retrofit it and make it smart. And there we had to create some new telecontrollers tailor-made for as we speak. So, but it worked out well, and they're already existing now, I think. And the latest question was on, I forgot it, Sarah.
Synergies.
Oh yeah, about the synergies. Well, I think public lighting is already longer than in this period under project funding on the European level. And we know from synergies, I know from synergies in the 2Cs area with the smart light concept project, which is in the 2Cs area is a bit different, but they're more or less the same issues. They are also working on how to approach your citizens and also have some small scaled investment projects, demonstration projects. The ones I've saw in the chat I didn't knew about, so I will check into it. And of course, if you can join for activities or others will try to do it. It's too important to not take the opportunity to have our results and their results match together, as we have really the same audience. The world of the public lighting isn't something everybody thinks about. It's something that's there, but you don't notice it. So it's really, you have the cities, you have the grid operators, you have, of course, the technical partners, the enterprises. So working together is a must, I think. So if you can have the chat afterwards, I'm interested to hear could be our sparring partner in the future also. Thank you.
Good. Thank you, Christophe. So welcome back, everyone. Hope you had very fruitful discussions in your breakout sessions, and that you found inspiration from past project results in the earlier presentations. I was in 2 different groups, and I heard that people found time to exchange a few words on the needs and challenges and look for synergies. And it seems like maybe some partners have even discussed ideas for future program. So I would encourage everyone to keep up to date with the Northwest Europe program as the year progresses. You can see there that you can join the official newsletter and monitor our website, the Northwest Europe program. So to be sure you don't miss any calls for proposals, which are expected in spring 2022. And I would also remind you, of course, to please don't ever hesitate to contact your national contact point for your country. So I'm obviously the Irish national contact point. We have Matthias on the call, who represents the Flanders region of Belgium. And there he is popping up on the video. And each country has their own contact point, and you can find out who it is and their email address in the Northwest Europe website. And we're also on social media. So with that, I think we can just close the event and say thank you to our excellent speakers, to Christophe and Rijk, and to the breakout theme group leaders. I hope you found it fruitful. And thank you, everyone. And we will end the session for today.